Please rise as you are able and join us in singing Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Welcome.
Welcome to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation this lovely morning. Our call to worship this morning is from William Schultz, a UU minister who was president of the Unitarian Universalist Association for 2 terms, after which he went to be CEO of Amnesty International USA. He believes, and I do too, that Unitarian Universalism affirms that creation is too grand, complex, and mysterious to be captured in a narrow creed. That is why we cherish individual freedom of belief. At the same time, our convictions lead us to other affirmations, that the blessings of life are available to everyone, not just the chosen or the saved, that creation itself is holy, the earth and all its creatures, the stars in all their glory, that the sacred or divine, the precious and profound, are made evident not in the miraculous or supernatural, but in the simple and everyday, that human beings joined in collaboration with the gifts of grace are responsible for the planet and its future, that every one of us is held in creation's hand, a part of the interdependent cosmic web, and hence strangers need not be enemies, that no one is saved until we all are saved, where all means the whole of creation, that the paradox of life is to love it all the more, even though we ultimately lose it. And now, as we light our chalice, please join me in saying our chalice lighting words. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to work for justice.
Please rise if you are able, willing, to join us in 128, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all that is a gift, which we are called to use, to build a common good, and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. Good morning. I'm Ken St. John, your worship associate for today's completely lay-led summer service. Welcome everyone to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Hello out there to you joining us on the YouTube live stream. Let's show the room so that we can all shout out a welcome in unison on 3. 1, 2, 3, welcome! Thank you, that worked well. We know you're out there, and we hope you enjoy the service. Also, hello to anyone watching the archived recording. However far in the future, any one of these services could go viral, you never know. And hello directly to anyone who considers themselves a visiting guest among us. You know who you are, and the rest of us want to know too. So, if you're willing, I ask you now to please briefly rise as you are able so that we can all appreciate you at once. Are there any visitors who would like to stand? Thank you for that. On YouTube, let's see, let me mention too that you are invited to join our welcome circle over there by the circle after the service. As you can see from the information on the screen that you may have seen about welcoming visitors. There you go. On YouTube, you could post a comment to identify your newness to the online community, and they will be glad you did. I've heard it said that the best way to turn visiting church shoppers into long-term members is by getting them directly involved. A smart congregation will make it easy for anyone to find appropriate volunteer opportunities. I want all you new people to know about one of the fun ways you can get involved. We have a community garden. It's at the extreme northwest corner of the property. Everyone should come and visit it sometime. It's every bit as beneficial as walking the River Rock Labyrinth. It's not much to see right now, given the season, but think how much better it could be if you came around and got your gloves dirty. Actually, we will provide you with gloves. Participation in the garden swelled in 2020 when outdoor was the only way to gather. And we began to ask ourselves, why do we do it? Not the gathering, but the gardening. Were we growing to feed the homeless, to raise money, to demonstrate sustainable living on a plant-based diet, to supply the staff and the congregation with fresh produce? Well, we've done all those things, except raising money. We'll never be a profit center. But that doesn't mean you can't profit from joining in. By 2022, we formalized our community garden mission statement. Guided by the Unitarian Universalist seventh principle, that is the interconnected web, VUU seeks to cultivate a sustainable, community-focused garden that nourishes our body through nutritious organic produce, the mind through education, and the soul through connecting with others and nature. Nourishing mind, body, and soul, who wouldn't want that? Krista Zabor is the new chief garden guardian. I saw her back there. Will you wave? There's Krista. Now, with the mild autumn weather just around the corner, she'll be planning the winter planting soon, and this would be a great time for new folks to jump in with both boots. Please contact Krista or me if you are interested. The lay pastoral care associates today are Adrienne O'Donnell, here in the sanctuary. There she is, thank you. And Claudette Wassail online. They are on call for emotional support and a listening ear. Adrian will be available at the front of the sanctuary after the service, and you can contact the Lay Pastoral Care Group at any time at pastoralcare@vuu.org. The Caring Neighbors Network provides more tangible support to friends and members of VUU in the community and in our homes. They can be reached at caringneighbors@vuu.org to assist you in your times of need. And Barbara Chiara handed me a brief announcement on behalf of the Caring Neighbors. They and the Valley Interfaith Project Core team are hosting the monthly Building Relationships House meeting today after the service. All are welcome at 12:15 in the Flex Room, which is over here. All right, let's resume.
Please come on up for the Time for All Ages, which will give you an idea about what the rest of the congregation will hear about when you are in your classes. My theme today is Filling Your Cracks with Gold, which talks about the Japanese art of kintsugi, where people fix broken pottery with resin dusted with gold. It's an ancient Japanese art form, but it's still relevant today. And I'm going to be reading you all the story, The Kintsugi Kid, written by Allison Mathis Jones and illustrated by Morgan Jennings. Sit yourselves on the floor, and Ken will show you the pictures in the book while I read the story. And before you go off to your classes, and when you get your lights, I hope you'll also feel free. I think you've actually gotten it, or your parents have gotten it before, to take a page or two from the Kintsugi coloring book to color when you go home after class. And Ken will no longer have that for you when you leave, because Ada has taken care of that. She's so great. Okay, the Kintsugi Kid. Little Curly Pearl was a whirly, whirly girl. And like most whirly girls, Curly Pearl loved to twirl. At the park, in the store, and even at home, Pearl just couldn't help it. Twirling was her favorite way to roam. One day, Pearl twirled past a colorful book adorned with a shimmery bowl. The bowl on the cover was special because its cracks were filled with gold. Below the bowl was a strange word in bold letters that Pearl tried to read. She asked, "Mommy, what is kintsugi?" Kintsugi is a way to make broken things pretty again. Daddy and I learned it when we were in Japan. Pearl said, "I can't wait to share this with my friends." She smiled at Mommy and continued to spin. She twirled over here, she twirled over there. Mommy warned her to be careful, but Curly Pearl didn't care. In the blink of an eye, Pearl started twirling just a little too fast. Boom! She crashed into the table as she quickly whirled past. The table wobbled wildly, and on her face, she fell flat. Cups and plates went flying to the floor with a boom and a splat. Mommy ran over and scooped Pearl into a hug. "Don't worry, sweet Pearl. Doc Brown will stitch you right up." Doc Brown sewed Pearl's cut, and as he sent Pearl on her way, he told her that her new scar was more than likely here to stay. Pearl couldn't believe it. She looked down at the ground and said, "Oh, what have I done? I think I've ruined my face. I was only trying to have fun." Mommy said, "It's okay, baby. That scar gives you flair." "But Mommy, having a scar like that just doesn't seem fair." Pearl sulked all the way home. But when she arrived, she was greeted by Daddy, who had a special surprise. "When something falls and breaks, we don't just throw it away. You see this plate? It's not trash. It can still be great. We'll take all the broken pieces and make something better. The plate will be perfect when we put it back together." Daddy and Pearl used glue that shimmered and shined. The plate was like a puzzle, all the pieces aligned. As Pearl stood back and proudly admired their work, she was instantly reminded of her own little quirk. Pearl remembered that kintsugi is about making broken things whole. Kintsugi makes things more beautiful because they are mended with gold. Daddy, I don't think kintsugi works only on glass. We are all like kintsugi. We all get a chance. Sometimes things happen that don't seem fair, but as Mommy just said, my new scar gives me flair. That's right, Daddy said, like this plate that we've made more beautiful than before. Your scar will be a symbol of strength forevermore. So your blemish, your chipped tooth, your big squiggly scar, yes, it will be with you wherever you are. But don't be afraid. There's no need to worry. Think of it as a chance to share your story. Own your imperfections because they make you, you. Always remember, the broken is beautiful too. So kids, it's time to go to your classes. And I hope you have a page from the coloring book. And I hope you enjoy answering the question. Every page has a question on it, and I hope you enjoy answering them, but don't do it until you get home because you have classes to go to. We'll sing you out to This Little Light of Mine.
Please rise. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Yay.
As we begin our time of centering and personal reflection, we will start by saying our covenant together. After saying our covenant, we hope you feel free to sit in silence or to light candles or place a stone in the sand or put some water in the fountain while Lynn plays I Believe on the piano. Please join me in reciting our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in friendship. Thus do we covenant.
Thank you, Lynn. That was beautiful. For at least the third time from this pulpit, I'm going to relate an experience from the annual Let's Have Fun Together auction. I enjoy both the buying and selling aspects of the auction. And over the past 3 years, 15 of you have granted me the privilege, through your purchase in the auction, of tuning, repairing, and restoring your bicycles. Are there any of those 15 here? Krista was one, but she probably went with the kids. There we go. Good. You might say I practice Zen and the art of bicycle maintenance. Repairing bicycles is a spiritual practice in a chop wood, carry water kind of a way, as is pulling weeds and growing vegetables in our community garden. Doing something useful with focus and good intention. The most challenging of these projects so far was the very first one, Rick Henrik's 50-year-old Raleigh record. I have a picture, it will pop up. This is not Rick's actual bike. He's out of town and couldn't ship me a picture, but it's one very much the same and the same model and make and era. Rick told me that he enjoyed riding this classic road bike during the COVID shutdown months. Though I'm not sure how, it had many signs of old age and was barely rideable. I ended up replacing the chain, the saddle, the bar tape, the wheel bearings, the brake pads, 2 broken spokes, all the cables and cable housings. All the other moving parts had to be cleaned, lubricated, and adjusted. When I finished, it was a vintage 1970 steel-framed bike that was functionally as good as new, which was my goal. It never occurred to me that by repairing it, I should make it better than new. If the bike had been broken to the point of being unusable, then fixing it would increase its resale value, but just back to where it was before it broke, not more. The bicycle is the same basic machine that it was 50 years ago. However, there have been many advances in frame material and component design that make today's bikes stronger, lighter, and faster. I suppose that instead of replacing the wheel bearings, I could have bought brand new lightweight wheels. And instead of foraging for a used saddle at the Tempe nonprofit Bike Saviors, I could have bought a spiffy new racing saddle with titanium rails. But then it would be better than new. But those upgrades would have cost well over $1,000. It would have made no sense. If Rick wanted to upgrade to modern-day high-tech components, he would have been smarter to just buy a whole new bike. I've concluded that the case of the Japanese bowls, which increase in beauty and value after they break and get repaired, is unique. I remember back in the days of public broadcasting. What a great nation. I enjoyed watching Antiques Roadshow. I believe that if their experts assessed, say, an oil painting whose canvas had been torn and repaired, or an old table that had a crack glued back together, or maybe a 200-year-old dresser that had its original brass hardware replaced with shiny new knobs, they would say the value of each of these items had diminished, not increased. On the other hand, the appraisers seem to really value something they call honest wear. Attempting to refurbish, refinish, paint, or even clean a piece of antique furniture can ruin its value to the collector. It should look its age. Rick's bike has plenty of honest wear. The paint is chipped and scratched from decades of leaning against lampposts. Shiny metal parts have oxidized to a dull gray, and all of the components are old and out of date. It looks its age. I got to preview an early draft of Mary's reflection, and she will be mentioning the practice of finding value in things that are flawed, aged, or incomplete. Now that's something I can relate to. And it reminded me of another hobby of mine, which is loosely related to cycling. I collect roadkill tools. When I moved to the Ahwatukee foothills in 1991, it was still a massive construction zone with houses sprouting up daily. Once or twice a week, while riding my bike to and from work, I saw tools laying in the gutter that appeared to have fallen out of the back of a work truck. I made it my habit to stop and pick them up. If a tool was still functional, I would take it home and add it to the collection. Eventually, I amassed a heavy collection, which I displayed on the pegboard that you can see in this photograph taken a few years back. Every one of these tools is scuffed, scratched, or damaged, yet still usable, and I do occasionally use them. This wrench that we'll show in the next picture and that I'm holding in my hand is the first tool that inspired me to begin my roadkill rescue practice. Besides being scratched, dull, and rusty, it's clearly damaged on one side. Yet if I ever need to tighten down a 12-millimeter bolt, it can still do the job. In fact, just 2 days ago, I used a 10-millimeter wrench from this collection. I was disappointed that it wasn't the 12-millimeter. I think the coolest thing about Rick's bike is its combination of being old and yet fully functional, just like Rick and me. If you or your bicycle are old, yet fully functional, congratulations. That's very cool. And I hope you can sustain it for a good long time. And if you're not as strong, fast, or light as you used to be, if you suddenly need bifocals or can't bend over anymore, or don't remember what you had for lunch yesterday, that's okay too. Diminished capacity is an inevitable part of being alive, but it does not nullify your worth or usefulness. Some broken things just can't be fixed, and some might not need to be. I say we should use what we have to do what we can each day. Fix bikes, make music, pull weeds, with focus and good intentions.
The service this morning and my sermon, Filling Our Cracks with Gold, are centered around the song Japanese Bowl, written by Peter Mayer, a Unitarian Universalist songwriter and musician who also has given a concert here at VUU. He also wrote our congregational favorite, Blue Boat Home. And I'm delighted to tell you that my dear friend and sister-in-law, Kendall Aiken Davis, will be singing it for all of us. Listen closely, because her voice is beautiful, and the song is truly profound and the heart of my sermon.
I'm like one of those Japanese bowls that were made long ago. I have some cracks in me. They have been filled with gold. That's what they used back then when they had a bowl to mend. It did not hide
it made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time I broke anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be. But in a collector's mind, all of these jagged lines make me more beautiful and worth a much higher price. I'm like one of those Japanese bowls. I was made long ago. I have some cracks you can see how they shine of gold.
I've known Kendall since she was 8. Peter Mayer's beautiful, moving, and heartfelt song, Japanese Bowl, sung so beautifully by Kendall, tells us his cracks are filled with gold in the way the Japanese have filled broken pottery with resin and gold dust for centuries, with the art form kintsugi. Throughout this sermon, you will see some slides of kintsugi plates and bowls, and I have to say, I think they're more interesting than looking at me. But hopefully, they're not more interesting than what I have to say, although they may be, which is that I suspect all of us have a few cracks. I know I do, but I also suspect that not all of us have made them into scars, filled them with gold, and made them a burnished but beautiful and important part of our lives. At one point, preparing for this service, I thought I would give all of us some dissolvable paper on which we could write a crack or two we believe we have, and then we could put the papers in the water and watch them dissolve so that we could all think about how we would fill them with gold. But then I decided that would take too long and maybe freak some people out, so I decided not to do it. But I did bring some dissolvable paper here today, and it's on the back table in a kintsugi-like bowl, but it's not real kintsugi. Nick's holding it up, actually. And I'd be delighted if you took a piece of that and did this at home. Truly, I encourage you to do this, as to me, it's quite amazing to see the paper and your writing dissolve in a bowl of water, opening up new ways to see yourself. The paper is in the kintsugi look-alike bowl, it's not real, on a table at the back of the sanctuary. Please help yourself to it and the exercise of writing and watching your words dissolve, opening new possibilities. Kintsugi and wabi-sabi are interconnected Japanese concepts that celebrate imperfection and the beauty of natural processes. Kintsugi is the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, silver, or lacquer dusted with gold, highlighting the cracks and repairs as part of the object's history. Wabi-sabi is a broader aesthetic philosophy that embraces the beauty of transience, imperfection, and simplicity, finding value in things that are flawed, incomplete, or aged. And isn't that good news for those of us who really are old, like me? Kintsugi does make broken bowls and plates more beautiful, and it's an aesthetic that is both charming and challenging to think about. What does it mean to be broken? How can being broken generate beauty? How can filling cracks with gold resin make something stronger, as well as more beautiful or more useful? I'm going to tell you a story from my life when I was definitely broken, and some of the ways I've tried to form scars from the cracks and fill them with gold, which I hope has enabled me to help others too. The story centers around my mother, who I adored and who died of medical malpractice when she was 55, though we thought initially it was just bad luck. She had had what was supposed to be a very simple gallbladder operation, but she didn't recover as she was supposed to, and then had a series of operations to fix it, but they didn't take, and she ultimately died because of that original operation and the lack of immediate aftercare. By the way, this isn't just my family's opinion. When our lawyers put it to a board of the King County chapter of the American Medical Association, they thought the malpractice was even worse than we did and provided the medical experts to testify at the trial. I was 24 when my mother died and was 22 when she had her first terrible operation. When she had the second operation, 10 days or so after the first, the specialists in Seattle drew us a diagram of what they did and said if it didn't work, she would die. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning in the hospital waiting room, and I remember pretty much screaming, "No, there must be something else you can do. She can't be dying." And the doctor repeated himself, and then he said, "You absolutely cannot tell her this." "What do you mean?" I asked. "It will not help her get better. She can't know she might die." He was emphatic. I argued that that was not right. She had to know what was happening to her body, but I was shut down by two very strong, very famous professionals, and I was only her daughter, 22, doing my master's degree in history and continuing on to a PhD in history, and what did I know? They were medical doctors, highly respected surgeons. I was completely shut down, as were my father and my brothers, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. Over the next 2 years, Mom did get marginally better initially, then worse, then a third operation, and then my father called me to ask me and my husband, Michael, to come home to the little tenant house on our farm, because otherwise Mom would have to go into a nursing home because my father, who was head of our family business, traveled about half the year in short trips, a few days gone, a few days home, and so on. Both Michael and I were, in fact, happy to come home to Carnation, to our farm, from our rickety but beloved houseboat on Lake Union near the university, if it would make Mom's life better and keep her out of a nursing home. She didn't know that would have been her fate, because we still were obeying the doctors and not talking about how her body was shutting down. At that point, the doctors told my father that she now had a, quote, life expectancy of 6 months to a year, and we still were forbidden to talk to her about dying or what she wanted or how we could see her, be with her through all of it. It turned out that, unaware of how bad it was, what she wanted that summer was to take a trip to Greece, and Daddy sent her with my youngest brother, who was going to college, to help her, even though we were afraid it was going to be very dicey, but we couldn't tell her that. In fact, she started hemorrhaging about a week into the trip and was ferried from Greece to Italy and then flown home from Rome, where she was taken immediately to the hospital from the airport. We were still not supposed to talk about the fact that she was dying, even though she desperately wanted to go home, see her dogs, and look out the window at Mount Rainier, my favorite mountain in the world. "Why can't I go home?" she asked me several times. Why did I obey those doctors? It's a question I ask myself still, 56 years later. I went to see her every day, taking her fresh Washington strawberries and raspberries, the best in the world, because the hospital food was horrible and there was no fresh fruit. But I didn't stay with her all the time, because by then I was studying for my PhD comprehensives, and they were formidable exams, 8 hours each, very demanding, and I was scheduled to take them in fall quarter, starting in early October. Even so, we talked every day when I brought her fresh fruit about what was happening and when she might get well enough to come home. I remember we watched the moon landing together in her hospital room on July 20th. She died 6 days later. At that point, none of us had an inkling that her initial surgery and aftercare were malpractice until the charter air insurance refused to pay for her return from Greece because they said her illness was from a pre-existing condition caused by malpractice, which led to lawyers, the medical board, and a trial, which actually made it all worse, but I will spare you that story. Suffice it to say, the trial in 1971 was genuinely terrible, and visibly pregnant with my first child, I was called to testify and then was cross-examined by opposing counsel about how much I missed having my mother with me during my pregnancy, a genuinely traumatizing and horrible experience. It has taken me years to forgive myself for listening to those doctors who were more concerned about their professional lives than my mother's experience. I was young. They were medical doctors. I had no expertise. But at some deep level inside me, I knew they were wrong. That my mother deserved to know what was happening to her, that I deserved to have the deep conversations with her that she would have wanted, because we were, in fact, very close and truly did adore each other. And also, at another level, I was sure she knew what was happening to her and her body and couldn't get the relief she deserved by talking about it. I still wish I had told my professors I was postponing my doctoral exams to be with my mother, but I didn't. After she died, it felt like all the gold in Fort Knox couldn't fill the cracks in my soul. While time can often help heal cracks in your soul, it doesn't always work. But sometimes, again, not always, time and actions together do genuinely help in that healing. Now, with the hospice movement and a real change in medical practice, patients and families can be honest with each other, can make plans, can speak about what matters, can have the loving talks they deserve, because talking about dying is no longer forbidden, and the hospice movement actually encourages talking and honesty. The truth is, of course, that we all do walk this path. None of us lives forever. Some of the ways I've filled my formerly broken self is I've given a sermon on death and planning for it called We're All Walking This Path here at VUU, which was well received. Much more importantly, I sing with our hospice choir, Voices Lifted, and have since it started. We sing for Hospice of the Valley and also for congregants and families who contact us to sing for their members, and it has been such an honor. And I am so filled with gratitude to be able to sing for people who are recovering from illnesses or who are ill or dying, and for their families. Excuse me, I have terrible allergies, as many of you know. It is an incredible blessing and honor for me to be able to do this, one that I am profoundly grateful for and will never forget. Also, when a beloved friend of mine was dying, and we all knew that because he was very open about it, I called his son, who was only about 23 and living in the Midwest working in tech, and for whom I'm kind of a great aunt figure. And I told him to come home as often as he could, at least once a month and maybe more, because he couldn't imagine at his age what losing his father was going to feel like. Because he was so young, and I told him about how hard it was for me to understand what my mother's death would feel like, because I was his age when she died. He did what I bossily, and had no business really, telling him to do, and since then has thanked me several times. Because the truth is, when you're young, you can't really imagine what forever feels like. And now I have another story, which isn't quite so harrowing as mine, but shows how scars and brokenness can be made beautiful and whole, how different actions can fill the cracks and make scars filled with resin and gold. This is a story of a now famous person and powerful man, but which begins when he was just a local Phoenix Arcadia high school kid. And as he has said in his interview, quote, "As a kid, I couldn't speak without stuttering. I felt small, invisible. The mockery hurt more than any punch. But then I discovered something magical. In movies, you don't need perfect words, just imagination. At 17, I shot my first film. No one expected anything from me. But inside, I had already built entire worlds which no one could see. Years later, I directed Jurassic Park. People laughed. Dinosaurs? That's for kids. They had no idea I was about to change cinema forever. We used technology the world had never seen. We made the impossible feel real. But the hardest part wasn't the production, it was losing my mother during filming. I went from the set to her funeral and back again. Every scene became a tribute to her. Jurassic Park became a global phenomenon, but few knew that behind those thunderous dinosaur roars was a broken boy who turned his wounds into power. Today they call me Steven Spielberg, but I'll always remember being just a stuttering kid who chose to tell stories instead of giving up. Don't let your flaws define you. Let your scars build something the world never saw coming, end quote. Creating movies is Steven Spielberg's kintsugi, which has made his life and his crack of stuttering a proud scar that shines with gold. Although it's taken me decades, I do feel like my broken parts have been filled with resin and gold dust. But it's easy for anyone to feel broken in myriad ways these days. The Surgeon General's latest report holds that loneliness, suicide, self-harm, and depression are among America's worst health problems, that many of us are broken. What if we look to the ancient Japanese art form of kintsugi and think of ways to fill in our brokenness with gold? What would your gold be? What would mine? How could we do it? How could we make ourselves, broken as we may be, more happy, more healthy, more beautifully whole, and turn our brokenness into golden scars, visible but now shining pieces of our lives? I'm not saying that every time or way we are broken, we can always be fixed, but I really do believe, as Peter Mayer does, that scars replacing cracks are a real step forward, especially if they are filled or dusted with gold. More importantly, I believe that getting to scars dusted with gold is a worthwhile goal to replace brokenness, worthwhile for us, and hopefully for our communities, and even possibly for the world, if we could do it. Maybe our kintsugi would be resistance, maybe good deeds or good trouble, maybe working for Paz de Cristo or iHelp, maybe bringing food to a neighbor, maybe making a free library, maybe writing a letter to the Arizona Republic or calling a representative, maybe registering voters, maybe giving more money to charity, VUU, Amnesty International, Ukraine, World Central Kitchen, Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, or volunteering in a school. Maybe singing for the sheer joy of it and giving that joy to others. It could be our cracks are really bad, but there is so much good we can find to heal ourselves, to golden scars we can be proud of, and also at the same time make the world a better place. Maybe that's what the verses Micah 6-8 really mean with its rabbinical admonition. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Let's learn from kintsugi and wabi-sabi to value imperfections, transients, and flaws, and fill our cracks with gold. As Albert Einstein once often said, there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is. Let's go for miraculous, and our scars filled with gold for us and for everyone in the world. May it be so.
I know you're probably wondering, does it take a lot of money to run that community garden over there? It's big. Well, no, it doesn't. In fact, I would estimate that just the cash we could collect on a single service offering could probably take us to the end of the year. This is not an announcement of a targeted giving collection, though. It'll all go to the general fund, which is where the garden's modest budget comes from. So the ushers, please come forward now to take up the offering, and I thank you for your generosity as Lynn plays music to give by.
And now we get our turn. Please stand as you are willing and able and join in the Teal Hymn Book 1064, Blue Boat Home. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge
to the waves upholding me. Hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me. Sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms. Never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Now our service is ending. Please join us in reciting our extinguishing the chalice words. Though we extinguish this chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. And as we close this service, I want to leave you with some words from Julian of Norwich, who lived from 1342 to about 1440 and was one of the most influential Christian mystics of the Middle Ages. She lived through the devastation of the Black Plague and was the author of the earliest surviving book in the English language written by a woman, titled Revelations of Divine Love. So from Julian of Norwich, we close with, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. For there is a force of love moving through the universe that holds us fast and will never let us go. And from me, I bid you now to go in peace and just a little unrest.